Hey, this is part two of our cultural coherence PowerPoint. So, part two. It's good stuff. Part two here, culture and place in North America. Most people who have a common culture tend to live near one another. That's just the way it is. All right. Culture marks the visible scene. Language, values, habits. Uh, People live near people who have the same culture as them. That's just the way it is. It's a common thing. You have something in common with somebody, you live near them. It's the way it goes. Cultural homelands. Okay. A culturally distinctive nucleus of settlement, defined geographical area, and its ethnicity has survived over time. Okay. These areas right here listed kind of prove what I just said, meaning a certain group of people have maintained the ability to settle in an area a long time ago, defined by the geographic area that they are. So the area they live in, their ethnicity has survived, meaning they were there back a long time ago and they're still there today. That's basically what that means. And here are kind of a map showing what I just explained. The borderlands, mostly Hispanic long ago, still are today. Okay, the French, Louisiana French folks down here, still there today. Okay, that's what they're talking about there. When the interior of our country was settled, agriculture was the big part of it. It was the main uh, activity that they did economically. Um, Most of these communities were immigrants. They established them long ago, and some of these still exist. There's Amish communities, German communities, the Dutch, and Ukrainian that are still there today. Windthorst is a German community. Scotland, okay, Munster. They were established a long time ago and still there today. Here are some pictures showing you this. The German Fest, which is in Munster every year. I think it's in the spring. Big time Germans celebrating all things German. Picture top left is a Dutch community in Pennsylvania on the horse and carriage. They don't use a lot of modern things. But that's kind of reinforcing what I just said. Ethnic neighborhoods and cities. Los Angeles, Compton, Inglewood. Black migration from the South has come and settled in these neighborhoods long ago, and they still exist today. These cities are kind of bordered on ethnic groups, separation of the two. East Los Angeles is mostly Hispanic. Alhambra and Monterey Park are mostly Asian. Um, and you can see the map here kind of shows that. The red area is mostly the Asian community in the red area. The yellowish green looking stuff here is mostly Hispanic, which is East LA. You see East LA right here. But you can see all of it. Okay. The darker blue-gray is majority of the people in the area are black. Watts, Compton, Inglewood, and then the white or creamy color boxes there are mostly Anglo or white. And the brown is no majority, so it's kind of a mix of everybody. But you can see some of these neighborhoods are separated based on ethnicity. Just the way it is. People tend to live by people that they share a culture with. That's what we kind of got to a few slides ago. And here's kind of how all this stuff worked. As ethnic concentrations of non-whites increased in the cities, whites left for the suburbs. Okay, they left, moved out into the suburbs. Central city ethnic neighborhoods, isolated from urban mainstream, are mostly I won't say controlled by, but have a big factor in them is that it's a high impoverished area. Most people are very poor. Not all, but most are very poor. There's a high unemployment numbers. They're isolated from a lot of mainstream things that are happening, businesses, the job market, things like that. So that's why when you have high poverty rates and high unemployment, that's when crime tends to step in, because for the most part, a lot of times people are driven, if they don't have jobs and they need money, and either take money from people or take their items and sell them, or they get into drugs, and you have the whole dirty cycle of viciousness happening, sometimes spurred on by the fact of the poverty level and unemployment. Not saying it's right, but just saying sometimes that's the way it is. Now, ethnic groups are moving out into the suburbs. Okay, Monterey Park is one of the first suburban. It's like Chinatown, but out in the suburbs. There are Hispanic neighborhoods in San Antonio that are outside of the inner city area. Black neighborhoods in Atlanta. So ethnic groups are moving away from the cities and getting out into suburbs more nowadays than they were 20, 30 years ago. And here's some pictures to show you that. Religion in North America, Catholic and Protestant. 25% of the people in the United States are Catholic, or 44% are in Canada. Protestant, there's 60% in the United States and 40% in Canada. Okay, other religions, Jews, Orthodox, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindu, there's a list of others. Globalization of American culture. North American cultural geography, okay, mainly the United States, are becoming more global at the same time that global cultural geographies are becoming more North American, which means that while our culture, specifically mostly in the United States, is spreading and becoming global to other places and becoming part of other places' culture, and that is happening while other places, other cultures, are kind of becoming more important or more a part of North America. Okay, so while culture is going out of America to other places, their cultures are now kind of seeping in here. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Reason for this, we have foreigners coming in every day, mostly tourists, exposing us to other cultures. Colleges, universities are big into foreign students. You go to MSU, you'll see a lot of people from the Caribbean. That's just, they have different deals, different monetary funds and operations and things to attract students from other places, other countries, and it helps us become exposed to their culture. One thing that affects the global, the global ability, or the ability of everybody to. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. That was my phone. One thing that affects or has an effect on us becoming very global in our communication is language. Obviously, we all don't speak the same language. English is becoming more prevalent around the world, but it's not the only language spoken. Some folks believe that keeping their native language is very, very important to maintaining their heritage, which I agree with. If you lose the ability to communicate with your own family in a certain way, whether it be speaking Spanish or speaking German or whatever, then you've lost a big part of your culture. So I understand that to a certain degree. Big thing as far as us and reaching out globally, our culture and other cultures coming here, is the internet. By 2004, 75% of the United States and Canadian people had internet access. Those numbers are going to be way up now. Obviously, almost everybody has some kind of internet access, whether it be cell phones, computers, whatever it may be. It's everywhere. All right, so that's a huge part of this new global culture. Americans are traveling more than ever. U.S. citizens take more than 23 million overseas trips per year. So every time you go overseas, you're exposed to new culture, and sometimes you bring it back with you, and it spreads even more. Restaurants, ethnic restaurants are very popular. Mexican, Chinese, Thai, whatever. Foreign beverages are up. Fashion, everybody's exposed to fashion. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada, and the music's a big part of cultures, learning about other cultures. Now here are some pictures. Ethnic restaurant, the Rolling Stones, Ricky Martin, who was big for 1 year back in the day. Excuse me, back in the day. And you got our fashion over here. Global diffusion. Diffusion is the spread of ideas. Okay, whatever. Global diffusion, same deal. Global transportation and communication help spread culture quickly. Trains, planes, automobiles, the telephone, the internet, all part of diffusion, global diffusion. How you really spread culture and make it take hold is with the young people of all the countries. Young people like yourself are highly impressionable. You open-minded for the most part, and when you're like that, you have the opportunity to absorb other things that you normally wouldn't absorb because you're not set in your ways. So the image of individualism here in the United States, the wealth, freedom, all that kind of stuff spreads to places where they don't have those things. And that's something that really kind of sits with people, and they absorb it, and then eventually turns into what they do on an everyday basis. English is the official language in 75 countries, not in the United States, but in 75 other countries. Our television shows and movies are broadcast everywhere. Films in Western Europe are American. 50% of the Japanese market's American. And there are global advertising things all over the place, helping increase cultural diffusion or global diffusion. Cultural, I guess, yeah. Sometimes it's not welcome. You get in places like Iran, a lot of places in the Middle East, and other places around the world. Our culture is not really wanted. Okay, the Canadian government requires a certain amount of TV on their TVs to be Canadian, so they don't want to lose that. Iran has banned satellite dishes in many United States films, mostly probably because of what they represent and things they show. And here are some pictures of that. Burning flags, burning the Bush sign. You got these guys protesting McDonald's and Coca-Cola and telling America to get out. So it's not always wanted, but that's cultural coherence, imperialism. Remember that, cultural imperialism. Let's go back to the top. Cultural imperialism, our culture spreading around the world and becoming a dominant fixture in other people's culture. Hope you dig it. See you tomorrow.